in Singapore was more the case of it fitting into the lifestyle, my personality. It's not something that I actually dreamt about. I can't say that I grew up wanting to be a race car driver. It was just in my personality to always do, I guess, extreme sports. I've done that throughout my teenage years. I think in my later years I was always into running. It was always something which I could fall back onto, sports in general. And when it came to that, to race car driving, it all started really when I had moved back to Singapore from Australia, and I was working in the media, and my original job is I'm a host and MC for live events, for sports, presenting, for recordings, and what happened was I had a friend at the time. It was it's my husband now, but back then it was a friend, and he'd asked me why not I try commentating the Singapore Karting Championship, something which he had organised for 3 years. So to be able to commentate, you really have to be able to learn, to be able to know the characters in the game. You have to know what movements and what people are thinking while they're doing the moves and what is happening. You have to be able to really, describe in detail what is going on during the race. So to be able to do that, I started karting, and I got involved with some of the local leagues. And my friends thought, oh, maybe you do have some talent, we're just going to teach you. And I'm not a scientific person, and karting and racing, it's I call it the science of racing. It's very scientific. It's mostly about facts. It's not a very artistic, expressive sport, which people think you've got to have emotion and passion, and they think that's part of the actual racing, but it isn't. It's actually a very emotionless sport, as I can find. As I understand that actually most sport is now, and I come from more of a background where it's for me, I love reading, I love the sport, but I've never done something so technical, and of course a lot of people start racing a lot earlier in their life. I started at 30, which is quite late, but from karting I progressed, and really an opportunity popped up, and to be honest, racing is very much 80% business, and the other 20% for me is racing. The business part is you've actually got to put together business proposals. You've got to go out and find sponsors, the smart way to do it. If not, you pay for yourself, and it can be a very expensive sport in that way, much like equestrian sports or sailing. It's the hardware that costs money. So the first thing really is to go out and do that, and in Singapore, because there were no other female race drivers for the last 5 or 6 years, I can't think, and I'm pretty sure there's no one else before that who would have got involved in this kind of way of doing marketing. My story sold quite well because it was quite unique, and it also came around at the same time. 4 or 5 years ago, where female empowerment as well, when it came to marketing, was quite high on the agenda for a lot of companies. So it worked out quite well for me in that way. Well, my biggest fear entering this industry, I think like anybody, was entering into something that I had never really understood. It was really the opposite of my mindset. I had a big brain retrain, and the fear was pretty much going into the science of driving. I'm not a scientific person. I've never done data and graphs. It wasn't so much the technical specifications of learning about the car. It really was about going out on circuit and being able to perform. These are the kind of stresses, and you think about the goals and the rewards at the end of that. But really, the confidence that I've gained now, 4 years later, really came from seat time, or lap time, as they say. You really have to clock the hours. It's about clocking your hours, being committed and dedicated to preparing yourself. There are so many different factors out on the circuit that you cannot control. You talk about the weather, you talk about the mechanics of the car, the hardware, the people around you. You can't control your competitors, the track condition. There's so many variables. So the one thing that you can control to get over that fear is focusing on yourself, and that's the most important thing. You don't focus on the end result. You focus on the commitment and dedication and the motivation that you can put in to get that result, and that result will ultimately come, and therefore the fear disappears, and that's where you gain the confidence in what you do. And this really is an application for your whole life, and I apply this very positively to the rest of my life. I don't waste not even 10% of thinking what I should have done, what if, how should I have done it. I don't look back like that. I just take it as it's done, it's finished. What can I do now to get to this goal, and how am I going to get there? And from that, really, it gave me the confidence, and that should really be the way that you get over your fear. So my word of advice and motivation for girls really would be to take your time. It doesn't always happen overnight. The things that you want to do in the career that you want to take, in the life that you want to lead. It took me to the age of 30 to really be able to figure out what I want to do. And it took many different experiences to get there and realize what I was good at. And it's true, they say in motorsport, you've got to go slow to go faster. So really take your time, be patient with yourself and not too hard on yourself. It really is taking each failure as it comes, and exponentially that will lead you to success. And that's something I've found throughout the years, that I've been able to mature my thoughts, my thought process, my emotions. I think you have to really think with your head and be factual about things rather than always be led by emotion. Sometimes it isn't about just being passionate and how you feel. Taking the right path really is something that you've got to think about. I think also in that way, if you want to be able to break out of that mold and do something different with your life, something a little bit unique, and motorsport is not your usual path, but it's not an impossible path. I didn't go through loopholes and I didn't have to go and jump over mountains to get there. Sometimes the answer is a lot easier, and it's a lot more readily available if you just look hard enough. I think fear sets us back, and rules that people have written about, I guess just maybe your thoughts. People say that a female in a male industry, and it's so tough, and what's it like, and males are more mechanically engineered in their head to understand things, and that's not always true. A lot of the times you can teach someone all those processes. It is then up to a point then of how good you're going to get. Do you run out of talent? But you don't know how much talent you have until you get and finish that process. So give yourself time, be patient. Don't be so hard on yourself. And I think something that I've always said throughout my life is try everything once.